one particular study I came across said that the anxiety levels in the average youngsters today are greater than those measured among troops on battlefield in World War II. That's what we have brought ourselves to. And yet we continue to think we are very smart people. Do we have the guts to receive love when it comes? Do we have the eyes to identify love when it comes? How will you get love if you keep blocking it in every instance? So people don't want love. People want little things like attachment, cheap gratification. If that is coming, they call the source as the lover. No, that's not love.
Acharya Prashant is not a spiritual guru. He's not someone who'll simply talk about the great Indian epics, Indian scriptures, or Indian philosophy. He's someone who studied world philosophy as well. And he would not agree with the following statement, but I strongly feel that this is what we did. Today's episode was kind of an essay on the Indian version of atheism in some parts. Again, I don't think that this is how he looks at it. This is just how I look at it as a podcast host. If you want your mindset about Indian culture completely twisted and turned around its heels just for one episode, this is the one for you. By the end of the episode, I even told Sir that maybe I disagree with many of his points, but in saying that, I gained value from every sentence that he spoke. And I hope that this podcast does the same for you. Remember, for podcasts just as heavy and deep as this, follow us on Spotify. We are a Spotify exclusive now. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. This is Acharya Prashant, twisting our heads with some truth bombs on the Ranveer Show. Acharya Prashant, sir, we finally get to talk again because I have a ritual of not talking in between podcasts. We did a very, very heavy, very, very deep Hindi episode. It's by far my deepest Hindi podcast I've ever done. I don't know where to begin the English one. I'm a little confused. So, how's it going? How are you?
I'm good, and let's just begin.
Okay. Okay, sir. Again, like for audiences that are not familiar with your work, and I know a lot of Hindi audiences are, we have a lot of international audiences as well. We have a lot of international viewers as well. I don't want to introduce you as a spiritual guru. That's how a lot of people would introduce you. I just spoke to you about how you used to drink back in college. We've had conversations about sex on the last one, Aghoris, all sorts of topics. I don't think you're a spiritual guru. What is a spiritual guru?
I mean, just nobody. I mean, I would rather be a buddy, a friend, a well-wisher, at most an elder brother. If I have to assume the mantle of a guide. An elder brother is something that appears far more friendly. A spiritual guru has become a loaded term now. I would rather avoid that.
The hottest search term after your name. So if you type Acharya Prashant on a Google search bar, the next term is Acharya Prashant English. That's the demand you have from the English audiences, from the international audiences. We spoke about how the world is going through a very strange time in the last one, sir. What is happening in the world according to you?
Man has become far too powerful for himself. We aren't that smart, and yet we have somehow assumed and arrogated a lot of authority to ourselves. You see, we have conquered Prakriti, that's physical nature, to a great extent. And we never have had as much power over our surroundings as we have today. So we are just exploiting nature and trying to feel fulfilled, and all that is failing, and we don't want to accept that we are operating from the wrong center. We actually are not as smart or sorted a people as we think ourselves to be. So when we feel unfulfilled, we do more of what makes us unfulfilled. And it's a vicious downward spiral. And I feel, are hurtling towards all kinds of annihilations, external and internal. That's what is happening. Just because we have made great progress in medicine, we have taken giant steps in technology, we have started feeling we are somebodies. The fact is that we do not know even the most fundamental things about life, that is ourselves. We do not know who we are and what we really want. And like blind men groping in the dark and stumbling from place to place, we spend our lives doing what we would call in physics as Brownian motion. Ra- Random, meaningless, purposeless, blind movement. But because we are moving and we have gathered more means and methods to move about with greater convenience and speed, we think we are smart. And we don't even want to look around at the tangible proofs available. We do not want to see that the average global temperature is already more than 1.5 degrees above normal and would probably be as much as 6 degrees above normal by the turn of the century. We do not want to count the number of species of flora and fauna we have successfully managed to make extinct. We do not want to look at the indicators of inner disquiet. Man today is more depressed and anxious than he ever was in his history. One particular study I came across said that the anxiety levels in the average youngsters today are greater than those measured among troops on battlefield in World War II. Troops on active war duty. They were less anxious and probably less depressed than the average youngster today. That's what we have brought ourselves to. And yet we continue to think we are very smart people. We have around 10,000 nuclear weapons. That's the kind of arsenal we are sitting on. And we have one of the superpowers actively threatening to blow up a nation in a nuclear way. And we think we are smart people. And I could go on to cite more and more proofs if these do not suffice. But the thing is that we are in a terrible mess. And what's worse is that we refuse to acknowledge that we are pretty stupid people.
On the Hindi episode we did, you spoke about how young people are easily able to absorb what you're saying, and the older ones are the ones who struggle to change.
Because the older ones are the ones responsible for most of the mess. And the younger ones are the ones who will live through the mess and carry the burden of the previous generations. The older ones are rather indebted to the upcoming generations. A kid born today would be living in a world of something like 500 to 600 ppm of CO2. And we are not talking of, we are not even beginning to talk of methane here. And the normal level should be close to 280 ppm. Who made this newborn live in such an atrocious situation? 500 or 600 ppm basically means the kid would have a horrid life. So once I said that's one of the videos on the English channel. We do have an English channel, so if people are searching for it, wonderful. One of the videos there reads, "Parents, apologize to your kids." So that's the mess the previous generation has landed this particular generation in. And nobody seems to be caring. Nobody seems to be bothered enough to wake up.
There's so much stuff from the last episode that was so heavy that I want to bring it up in this one. At the same time, I want to give the audience new content because there's a lot of listeners who are listening to both. So I'll bring it up as we go forward in this particular episode.
Sure.
One of the key points you brought up is that marriage, children, these things that society tells us to do, they are all social constructs. You're always told that this is how you should live out life, when they're actually key decisions that can heavily affect your mental health, your outcomes. So before making decisions like that, you need to have a lot of self-awareness. And I think through the last podcast, the key learning was the chase for self-awareness.
Right.
It's a lack of self-awareness that causes all forms of mental health issues, as well as all the problems we see in the world today. And psychologists of today, therapists of today help people with exactly that, self-awareness. They help people understand themselves.
Right. We can go into these questions that appear very trivial or mundane on the surface. Things like you mentioned, marriage or sex or girlfriend and all the issues of the basic nature.
Let's talk about the favorite subject of human beings then, sex.
Sex, yeah. What about sex?
We have spoken about sex on the show. In today's world, with so much easy sex out there, with dating apps, with just sadness, sex is used as an escapism in so many ways. You see that around.
Yep.
What is the truth about sex, honestly?
It's easy to see because it's not something that's happening to somebody else. It's the very ingredient, the fundamental thing in our lives, right? So it should not be easy to comprehend what's going on. It should not be difficult to comprehend what's going on. See, you look at an animal, right? What is sex for an animal? It's a purely physical thing because the animal itself is purely physical. The animal does not have much of a mental existence. It does have a mental existence, but that's very limited. The animal's existence is prakritik. It's determined by its physical constitution. So animals behave as per their bodies. No animal would ever say it has a purpose in life. Animals don't crack jokes. Animals don't laugh. Animals don't ask for the meaning of life. Animals don't want to really change their lives unless they are encaged or something. So animals are as Mother Nature made them. So sex too is just a physical thing for animals, just like food, just like water or respiration. But man is fundamentally different from animals. Animals have to live as per their bodies, and if an animal is living as per the constitution and demands of its body, the animal is all right, very much all right. It wants to sleep, it falls asleep. It feels hungry. It goes out to graze or hunt. Man is different. Man is consciousness, a very demanding, a very uneasy consciousness within this body. A consciousness that is related to the body, is probably born out of the body, yet has a nature and needs very, very distinct, very different from the body. Your body, for example, at this moment wants to rest. The eyes want to fall asleep. But your consciousness knows something else is more important. So the consciousness says, stay awake. Something else is more important. You have been a gymmer, right? The biceps want to say, stop. You say, no, I want to have a few more reps, right? Do you see there is a distinction between what the body is saying, what the body wants, and what you want? Would you rather go with your biceps or with your consciousness? No, you usually decide to go with your mind. That's your consciousness. Consciousness and mind you could use interchangeably. So in that way, man is very different from animals. So sex for a human being has to be, therefore, in the same way, correspondingly different for a human being. The animal's chief concern is fulfillment of its physical need. Man's chief, when I say man, I mean man and woman both. I mean a human being. I'm just a bit old-fashioned, so man. Man's chief requirement is the fulfillment of its consciousness. Do we get the distinction?
Yes.
Animal wants to fulfill its physical needs. Man wants to rather fulfill the needs of its consciousness, and that's why we often overrule the needs of our body. Look at a marathon runner. Look at what his legs are saying. The glutes, the calves. Everything is aching, right? And the stomach, he's probably famished as well. He carries on, keeps running. So body is saying one thing. And anybody who has ever achieved anything substantial in life, you would find to a great extent, he would have gone against the body, or he would have made the body toe the line of his consciousness. He would have said the body, you shall act as a slave, as a follower to the consciousness. You shall do what the consciousness tells you to do. And that's the way you reach somewhere in life. So that's the way of the man. So sex for man has to be a thing that fulfills his or her consciousness. Sex for man cannot be something entirely physical. If sex for human beings is entirely physical, then there is no difference between man and animal. And that's just not something pejorative. That basically has a practical disutility. What's that? If you act like an animal, you will remain unfulfilled because you are not an animal. You are not an animal. You see, there is a road accident. Animals pass by. They will not come to help the victims, the wounded. And you not say these are evil animals. They are seeing somebody lying bleeding there and they aren't offering help. Would you say that? You won't say that because it's not in the animal to help really. But if a man passes by without offering help, that man deserves to be severely reprimanded. That man deserves some scolding. And so the benchmarks are different. We are not animals. So when we get in contact with someone, as a man, if you come across a woman, the question that you should ask is this relationship, is this upcoming aspect of companionship for me going to fulfill my consciousness? Is that going to happen?
That depends on you, probably.
That depends on how you are and where your inner hollow is. Will she be able to really fulfill that inner hollow? And remember that inner hollow is not physical. It's something else. It's something else. Equally, will I be of help to her really? Or are the two of us just partners in some kind of physical give and take? That doesn't take much sense. Not that it is evil. It is just stupid. It is just stupid. Meeting someone just for the purpose of sex makes no sense. Not that there is some great vice in it or that you have become a criminal in the in the divine dimension. Nothing of that. We are not talking ordinary morality here. We are talking spiritual utility here. There is no utility to that. Maybe you will gain momentary satisfaction, but nothing beyond that. Nothing beyond that. In that sense, you see, sex and masturbation are not too different. The entire day, we live bad lives and the tension builds up. The tension builds up. The tension builds up to help you out. The tension builds so that under the influence of that tension, reeling under that tension, you decide to make your life better. But what do? You either have sex or you masturbate, and that gives you easy release, easy relaxation. And all the tension that was built up is just dissipated. The tension has come to no use. The same thing happens when you have a readily available partner at home, which happens in the case of marriage. So you live a bad life, and the bad life comes with consequences, but you are not available to the full force of the consequences because sex is such an easy dissipator and an easy agent of cheap relaxation. And you are back to square one. You are back to your relaxation should not come easy. If relaxation is easy, it is false. It will not help you in the long run or even in the medium run.
But what's the way to relax then?
You have to figure out the real cause of your unease. You have to see that offering yourself a cheap kind of release by way of ejaculation makes very little sense. We are not condemning it, I'm repeating that, in the moral sense, right? We are talking of something very important, very substantial. Is peace and fulfillment not substantial to us, then what kind of people are we? If fulfillment is something that indeed means the world to us, then we have to go into the real reasons of our disquiet and not offer easy vents like like copulation or masturbation or whatever.
Okay. In the last podcast, there were two key learnings for me. You said that definitely a lack of self-awareness is the core reason behind the world's pain and problems and trauma. Then one layer above that is not understanding the purpose of life, their own subjective purposes as human beings, our own subjective purposes as human beings. The question I have for you is, again, I walked into these podcasts thinking I'll talk to you about Vedanta, Aghoris, a lot of that stuff. And you gave me a very J. Krishnamurti Osho style podcast, which was very similar, to concepts related to self-awareness that I've read in their books, their work. Everything was about self-awareness. And to talk so much about self-awareness, you need to be self-aware yourself. And I'm sure you are. I want to ask you about the journey from being an IIT engineer to actually becoming whoever you are now. You had to do a dive inside your mind. And I'm trying to do a dive in my own life. These kind of podcasts help me a lot with going deeper into my own mind. But on the upper layers of my mind, I found anger. Then I found envy. Then I found lust. Then I found greed. Then I found questions. I'm stuck on the questions now.
If you're indeed finding these things within, you are on your way to redemption. If you can see that, you'll be liberated from that. So it's a good thing if you can indeed figure these out within. Very few people are able to choose to, rather. It's not a question of ability, it's a choice. Very few people choose to look at the naked truth within, and fewer still acknowledge it. So wonderful.
Is it the same order for everyone?
Order in what sense?
I first found anger. I had to work out.
The order can vary. Order depends on the situations. Order depends on your prakritic composition. There are people who exhibit very little anger, though they might be seething within. So it will be difficult for them to begin with anger. Somebody might be frustrated. Somebody might be suffering from an inferiority complex. Somebody might be jealous. Somebody might be lustful. So you could begin from anywhere. Anyway, all these things are a family of attributes. They come from the same DNA. The Bhagavad Gita talks of the Shad Ripu, the 6 enemies. And these 6 are all brothers, sisters, and cousins to each other. So you can pick any one of them. These are Mad, Moh, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Matsar. They all are babies of Mother Maya. So you can begin from anywhere.
Can you name them in English?
So Kam is lust, Krodh is anger, Matsarya is envy, Mad is illusion, Bhaya is fear. What else did I say? Kam, Krodh, Mad, Moh. Moh is attachment.
Attachment. Attachment's probably the last one. The most difficult one
I
to
don't
overcome.
clearly remember the order in which Bhagavad Gita states them, but the order is not of much use.
Attachment to what, sir?
Attachment to anything worldly.
Including your loved ones.
Obviously, if you are attached to your loved ones, then you are attached to them. Don't even call them loved ones. Love and attachment are mutually exclusive. Love precludes attachment.
I've already got my big learning from this podcast. Never looked at attachment like that. I know it's important to be detached in life from outcomes.
And
from
detachment
results.
is love, by the way. We do not look at even that this way. Love is detachment. Very few people would conjure the image of a detached person being a loving one.
Yeah.
But that's what he is. If you are detached, then essentially you are a lover. And you cannot be a lover, a loving person, without being detached.
Have you ever loved a girl?
Of course.
Okay.
I have not dropped from the skies. I'm as much a creature of the soil as anybody else is. In many senses, I'm rather worse off compared to even the average ordinary mortal. So It embarrasses me to say I have loved a girl just as anybody else does. Of course, of course.
And what did it teach you?
What did it teach me? That love is something far beyond what I took it to be.
And what you took it to be was an outcome of films and music.
To some extent, yes, obviously. Yes, yes. Well said. Very well said.
Yeah. I mean, that's all of us, sir.
Yes, yes.
Because I'm going through the same thing right now. I'm just talking about myself here. You said attachment is one of the 6 sins according to the Gita. Sins? I don't want to call it sins.
Enemies. Ripu.
Enemies.
Ripu. Enemy.
Okay. How do you start overcoming these enemies in you after you have figured that they're there?
By calling them enemies in the first place.
Okay.
That's called Shatru Bodh.
Okay. And then what?
Once you have called somebody as your enemy, you will not allow him to lord over you. You will not allow him to come too close to you. You will not allow him to embrace you and dominate you and dictate you. And that's all. Nothing more is needed.
Okay.
Identify them and name them rightly. Do not hide your factuality in the garb of false names. You can call attachment as love. You can call fear as responsibility. There are so many things. You can call insecurity as ambition. There are so many false names that we assign to what is within. And that offers us a false consolation and a false sense of wellness. We remain sick and keep certifying ourselves to be healthy.
There was a girl I dated once who taught me a lot actually about how to be a cool person. She taught me how to dress. She taught me how to talk to people. She taught me how to make more money. She taught me so many of the things that I thought were parts of what we call street smarts. And I still thank her every moment for that. In saying that, I'm not saying this in a judgmental, angry way, but she was a bit of what we call a conformist in terms of always wanted to do what society would think is correct. Want to get married at a certain age, have kids, always want to be seen with a certain kind of outfit, good brands, etc. The question I have here is, it's not just her, that's most of mankind. You travel all over the world and you realize most of humankind is like this on different levels. So the real question I'm asking you here is, for those people, which is 99% of humanity, what do you tell them about the purpose of human life? What is it?
See, there's nobody who has not gone the way of his or her desires. So one can start from there. I don't need to tell something entirely new to anybody. The thing that you are experiencing today is not the first time it's coming to you. You have been through it before, in another shape, another form, another time. What happened then? Why don't you see that the thing happening today is just a recycled and renamed and polished version of what you have been through before a zillion times? And if that couldn't help you, how would this help you?
You're talking about this lifetime.
Of course.
You're not talking about like past lives.
The Upanishads, it's a beautiful ending to one of the principal Upanishads. And it says, Kritam smara. Just remember what you have done. Just remember what you have done. That's the entire shlok. Half a dozen times that's repeated in the shlok. Just remember the deed, remember the deed, remember the deed. And if you can do that, you are liberated of the deed.
It's talking about pattern recognition.
Yes. Because there is nothing new that's happening here. Nothing new.
Okay.
Just this morning, incidentally, I was discussing with the team the concept of eternal return. Eternal return. That's found in the Greek philosophers, the Pythagoreans, the Stoics. And obviously that is explained with great clarity in Vedanta, in Bhagavad Gita, the concept of eternal return. There's nothing new happening here. Krishna tells Arjun, So many times has this happened before. It's just that you don't remember this. You don't remember what you have been before a million times. I remember all that. And he is not necessarily referring to past lifetimes. I've spoken a lot on that. So that's a separate issue. So if you can see that the kind of thing you are experiencing for a girl today is just a continuation and extension of what you were doing, let's say yesterday in the mechanical laboratory. Yeah? What you were doing at the age of 5 in the community playground. It's just the same thing, and therefore it will have just the same kind of ending. The previous thing didn't help you, and the proof is that you still require a new thing. Could that thing really help you? It would have attained a closure, but the closure never came. The proof is that again and again you have to rush into new kind of relationships, activities, adventures. Why do you require these new things? Because the previous ones didn't suffice. How will this one suffice when this is just the same essentially as the previous ones? If you can see that, then the fire of needless and blind excitement within is abated. And that helps a lot. That helps a lot. I'm not saying that because I'm against relationships or something. I want people to have wonderful, joyful, loving relationships, not the kind of random associations we get into and then make life hell for ourselves and all others.
And also enter a relationship if you've realized that it's for you, because it may not even be for you.
It's not even for you. And when you see, we do not know anything about ourselves, we do not know anything that would suit us or help us. Do we know the kind of food that's really good for us? Most people, huh? Do we know where to live? Do we even know which particular shirt or trouser to pick up from the shop? Do we know which course to enroll in? How will we know which person to go for? So just as we make blind and random choices about anything in life, we also happen to choose randomly some person who happens to coincidentally come our way, and from there ensues what we call as the fabled love story, and then there are kids and an entire dynasty can follow from there. And all that happened just because of a chance happening, random coincidence that meant nothing at all. So hollow beginnings that lead to futile endings.
Do you pray?
In one sense, all the time. In another sense, never at all.
What is prayer?
When you realize that the way you operate and you think and you apply your mind in all these things, that can take you only so far and no more. So you pause and fall silent. That silence is prayer.
It's not asking for things that you want from a higher power.
That's a demand.
Okay.
That's expression of a desire, no? That's a wish list that you give to your daddy. Daddy, I want all these things from the market. And if you don't bring these, I'll stamp my feet on the ground and raise a chaos. No. Prayer is not sakam. Vedanta is very clear. Sakam means desirous. If prayer includes desires, it's of no avail. Prayer simply should mean a silence in which you admit your smallness. I'm so small. If I ask you something, that would be self-defeating, because the ask would be as small as I am. So why ask something? I give myself to the beyond. I have done the maximum I could. Not that I'm trying to escape away. Not that I'm saying I'll languish and do nothing. I have done whatever limited possible in my capacity. I have gone to the edge of my capacity. And that's prayer. One has to be prayerful all the time. One has to be prayerful. And that's a contradiction of sorts, because on one hand, you have to do the maximum you can. On the other hand, you have to be free of doership. This avoidance of doership is being prayerful. Doing the utmost possible and yet not being the doer. That's being in prayer.
In your heart, what, who or who do you pray to?
There's nobody to pray to, really. If there is somebody to pray to, then I'm standing in front of a shopkeeper, or a service provider, or a big daddy who's there to take care of my needs. There's just nobody to pray to. See, not only must be nobody to pray to, also there should be nobody to pray. Nobody to pray and nobody to pray to. If there is somebody offering the prayer, then definitely the prayer would be a long wish list. You might not utter your wishes verbally, but they would remain implicit. You might be standing silent, but inwardly you would be wanting something to happen. That's not prayer at all. Not prayer at all. You have to keep yourself aside. Prayer is an exercise in getting rid of your own pestering existence. We are sick of ourselves. To pray is to keep the sickness aside. And the more you are prayerful, the more health you gain. If you ask for something in prayer, then you are just enunciating the sickness. No use.
A lot of the things you're saying are very, I'm using the word rude. I'm going to say the things you're saying are rude because they're breaking beliefs of me, a lot of the listeners. I have a certain strong belief, but you are breaking it and I'm accepting the breakage.
I often apologize to my audiences.
No, I don't think you need to apologize, sir.
No, whatever. I understand that I hurt. I understand that it can pain a lot. But I also know that within my mortal limits, I'm kind of helpless. I try to do my best to deliver the medicine in the least
Sugar-coated way.
In the least offensive way possible.
Oh, okay.
Least offensive way possible. But it's the nature of the truth that it bites. How do I help it? Beyond a point, I can't. And if I try to, as you said, sugarcoat it too much, then I'll be guilty of diluting the truth.
Yeah, fair.
And if truth diluted is truth lost. So
I'm going to give you one picture that's playing on in my head. There's a rapper who I follow. His name's Lil Dicky, and he's actually quite philosophical. And one of his videos talks about how he's having a conversation with a girlfriend of his, and they're discussing God, and she's a believer of God, and he's not. Like, he's an atheist. So he says that if God really created us, then why did he create the dinosaurs millions of years ago and then decide that, no, this is not fun enough, and then destroy them with like meteorites? So does that mean that we are just an outcome of fungus? Are we just fungus growing on
That's true.
Okay.
And let that bring some humility to the body identified ones. If you identify too much with your body, then you should know that your body is just an outgrowth of the first cells, the first primitive cells that grew under sunlight in a pool of cess. That's where we all come from, right? So that's what the body is. An overgrown amoeba, you could say, or fungus or bacteria, whatever. I mean, it should be as offensive as possible so that it drills some sense into us. In the dimension of the body, we are pretty ordinary and very little slimy beings. Right from that cesspool. In the dimension of consciousness, we are potentially the purest that is possible, purest beyond the mind's conceptualization. So pure that the mind cannot even envision that sacredness. We are that pure. But it depends on what you choose to be. If you choose to be the body, even the single-celled primitive organisms would be ashamed of you. We are so filthy, so dirty. Huh? Think of this. Think of this sack of skin. What's underneath it? Hmm? All kinds of things that you would find grossly repulsive if kept on this table. You'd run away if the contents of this skin sack are laid out on this table, won't you? There is excreta, there's urine, there is pus, there's bile, there are so many other chemicals and fluids and so much more. That is just repugnant to even think of, let alone look at. And yet we are so proud of the body. We keep talking of ourselves as we are nothing but the body. And the body is just in the vernacular you would say malmutra. That's what is within, right? You can cleanse your face, but just inside, the first thing in the alimentary canal is the saliva. And if you spit on someone, you know the consequences and you know how uncivilized that's supposed to be. And yet we behave as if we are pure things from the body. The body, if not maintained even for a day, starts stinking, does it not? Think of the corpse. Think of the corpse. You have to rush to cremate it. Huh? You are in a hurry. You are desperate to just somehow get rid of it. That's the worth of the body. And on the other hand, there is the consciousness, the purest and the highest and the absolutely sacred possible. Now, pick. The choice is yours. What do you want to be?
Consciousness is what is inside you after you close your eyes?
Consciousness is that which tells you that your eyes are closed. Not that you have to close your eyes. What is it that's behind the eyes and lets you know that the eyes are now closed? The eyes of a corpse are forever closed. Does the corpse know that? Is the corpse conscious of that? The corpse is not conscious of that. Consciousness is the thing behind the eyes that looks out through the eyes.
Do you want to talk about the soul?
Please.
Then where does the soul lie in this game of body?
The soul is a concept in the mind. There's nothing but the mind.
Okay.
There is nothing but the mind.
And the mind is different from the consciousness?
Mind and consciousness are synonyms.
Okay.
The soul, the spirit, all these are just concepts in the mind. Just concepts in the mind. You'll fall asleep. You'll remember anything called the soul? You won't. Had you not been taught the concept of the soul, would you have known it? You won't have. So all these are just concepts, definitions. Soul, spirit. There is only the mind, and then there is the content of the mind. The content of the mind. The content of the mind, unfortunately for us, is something very misplaced. We have filled up our minds with nonsense. Spirituality is about cleansing the mind. That does not mean refilling the mind with so-called pure or spiritual or sacred content. It simply means giving the mind a quality that makes it non-sticky. Now you put anything in the mind, it doesn't stick to the mind. Also, because nothing will stick to the mind, so all the things that come to the mind with the intention to stick around now find it no more useful to come to your mind. That way, now you are spared and blessed.
Like what? Like what are those things that come to your mind with the intention?
Think of a shopkeeper. Think of a shopkeeper. Why would he bombard you with advertisements? He wants the advertisements to remain here, linger around. If he somehow comes to know that in your mind, his advertisements won't stick, won't stay, would he waste his money advertising to you? And advertising has its costs, right? Why will he then choose you to target? He won't target you anymore and you are spared.
But what are those things? Like, could you give a daily life example of those?
See, the world is just like us. It's our mirror image. And just as we are unfulfilled beings, all the beings that you locate in the world are equally unfulfilled in their own ways. We are unfulfilled and ignorant, so we want to gain fulfillment through all kinds of random ways, random and devious ways. So what do? We use others as means to gain personal fulfillment. So I'm a shopkeeper. I look at you, I look at your pocket, and I think that if I can have a share of your pocket, I'll be fulfilled. I'm a man, you're a woman. I look at your body and I say, if I can lay my hands on your body, I'll feel fulfilled. That's what happens when you are unfulfilled. You become violent and exploitative. But if I come to know that the person in front of me is no more capable of being exploited, that person has become non-sticky. That person has become non-sticky. Therefore, he cannot be exploited. Will I bother myself with trying to exploit you anymore? I won't, because I know this person is now useless. I'm a shopkeeper and I know that this person cannot be trapped. Will I even make attempts on you anymore? I won't. So you are spared.
I'm feeling this urge to bring up the word atheism, sir. Are you an atheist?
What does being atheist mean?
I don't have an answer to that question, but I'll try answering it. I think it's a lack of a belief in a higher power.
One should not believe in anything. One should know what is.
And what is? Just your consciousness.
Just consciousness that has something very flawed and faulty about itself because it suffers. Suffering is a fact of life. It's the first of Buddha's Four Noble Truths. We suffer. Life is suffering. Right? We suffer. That's also what the existentialists start out with. There is an existential angst. Right? That's also what Vedanta seeks to address. Taptre, the three kinds of inner sufferings, inner fevers. So there is suffering. There is suffering. And I will limit myself to what is purely verifiable.
What are the three kinds of inner sufferings?
One is adhibhautik, the things that are purely material in nature. For example, a stone comes and hit you. Then adhidevik, things that are material, but you cannot make sense of them, so you attribute them to the gods. For example, there is a famine. It is a purely physical phenomena, but because you do not know what exactly caused it, so you say the gods are angry, therefore it didn't rain.
An earthquake or whatever.
Or an earthquake. Or a plague, something. Then there is adhyatmic. When you have everything in abundance and yet you are unfulfilled, that's when spirituality really starts for you. That's the adhyatmic tap. So adhibhautik, adhidevik and adhyatmic. These are the three kinds of inner angsts, out of which two are actually outer. Only one is inner.
Coming back to what we were talking about. You were talking about verifiable.
Yeah. So the only thing verifiable about life is that there is somebody who is talking and the speaker suffers. I do not know about God. So why should I talk about atheism or theism or even say I'm an agnostic? I won't claim either of these positions. All I know is I am. Because if I do not exist, who's talking? There is a speaker. There is a speaker and the state of the speaker is of suffering. That's the only thing I know. All else is a story. And we are not here to kid ourselves with stories, are we? We are here on something serious. We are serious about tackling the problem of human suffering and the angst contained in very human existence. That's what we want to understand and challenge. So I suffer. I start from there. I suffer. I am, and if I am, then this chair is. Because I can't say I am, sense this body. So the way I perceive my existence is wedded to this body, and if this body is, then this chair is. So I am, and I am implies this world is. So somehow this factuality that I begin with is itself containing suffering. Me and the world, which means the relationship between me and the chair, me and the entire world. That's where I begin from. But there is no God in this. Where does God come? Relationship, that's what comes. What's my relationship with the world? What's the relationship of this sufferer with his own body? The body is a part of the world. The body is a part of the world. What is the relationship? True spirituality, coming from Vedanta or any other place, actually explores nothing but this relationship. If you look at the various branches of Indic philosophy, And if you look at the various interpretations of Vedanta itself, there is Advait, there is Dvait, there is Vishishtadvait, there is Dvaitadvait. All that they are trying to come to terms with is the relationship between Purush and Prakriti, the relationship between consciousness and the contents of consciousness, the relationship between Jeev and Jagat. What is the right relationship to have with the world? That's the elementary question even a school kid should ask. And that's why this conversation, even if it looks heavy, is actually very important and should be very interesting to even a teenager. What is the right relationship to have with the world? What should the right relationship I should have with my classmates, with my colleagues, with that girl, with that boy, with my score sheet, with the entrance exam, with my parents, with those luminous objects in that shelf in the market? What is that new car model, voluptuous, looks so beautiful? What's my relationship with that? Because the relationship is not right, I'll suffer. And suffering is the fact of my being. One has to be very conscious of it. And one has to love oneself. And one has to be very respectful of oneself to say, I'm not born to suffer. What happens is that the spiritual inquiry does not even begin for most people because they reconcile to their suffering too easily. They say, oh, if I'm suffering, everybody else does. What else are we born for? They give decorated names to their suffering. They would simply say, oh, I'm bored. You're not bored, son. You're suffering. You're not bored. But if you label your suffering as boredom, you will give it very artificial and superficial solutions. You will say, oh, it's a weekend, let's go and watch the latest flick. And that would relieve you of your suffering state for a while. And that satisfies you. You should not be satisfied. Don't be satisfied too easily. Have a great lust within for joy, for the real thing, for the total. Ask for something that's immense. Don't just be happy with trivia and bits and pieces, and somebody is throwing crumbs at you and you say, yo, I got it in my lap, I'm satisfied. Not that kind of thing. Especially to young people, I'm saying. We should be very ambitious in the real sense. Ambitious not just in the sense of owning the latest iPad or that coveted job. Ambitious in the sense of extracting the maximum from life. Am I alive? If I am alive, what am I alive for? To just live the way I'm currently living? The question that I ask is, allow me 2 minutes more on this.
Sure.
The question that I ask is, anybody I meet, 10 years before, had you been told, offered a deal, that you will have 10 years hence the kind of life you are leading today, would you have taken the offer?
Yeah.
And in cent percent cases, the answer is no. Let's say you are 35. At the age of 25, if you were shown a glimpse of your life as it is today, at the age of 35, had you been shown a snippet, here, this is the way you would be living at 35, the way you are living today, would you have accepted it? People would say, no, this is not what we wanted when we were 25. I said, then why do you accept it when you're 35? Why can't you rebel? A young man has to be rebellious. And by man, I repeat, I mean both man and woman. In fact, women need to be rebellious even in an even deeper sense than men. Because they are more subdued, more subjugated in some way. Still, we call ourselves a liberated society and all that. That's another thing. So that thing has to be there. I want the real thing. I don't want to be satisfied too easily. I want to challenge the world. And before I challenge the world, I want to challenge myself.
Which means what in daily activities?
Which means everything that limits me, every cheap compromise that I make has to be kept aside. I'm not a teeny weeny little one. I'm immensity itself. And if that sounds too much, too heavy, simply say, can I be better than the one I deem myself to be? I don't suppose that's too much to ask for, right? Nobody is happy the way he or she is. So why can't you strive to be better? As simple as that. That's spirituality.
So like in this podcast, every sentence you're saying is adding value to my own head, as is the case with the listeners. I have very different beliefs from you. Again, I repeat that. Like there are many things you're saying which I disagree upon internally, but I still am gaining value from what you're saying. Somewhere else it's helping me. I have a very strong opinion on God, maybe because I would like to believe I've seen miracles in my own life. I've had dreams where I felt like God has visited me and told me things. I've applied it in my own life and that's led me to higher planes of joy. I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life. And this plane of happiness has been created because of finding solace in what I think of as God. And I think of as God as light and purity. But I remember that this belief of mine began at a place where probably your journey also began, which is kindness. I think that's the first step. There's a rapper, I think his name is Tyler, the Creator. So he said that people cry about not receiving love in their life, not receiving care in their life, and then victimizing themselves. But the actual key here is, if you feel like you're not receiving something, go give it out in the world. Do you agree? Because
Of course not.
you don't agree?
Do we have the guts to receive love when it comes? Do we have the eyes to identify love when it comes? How will you get love if you keep blocking it in every instance? Somebody comes to deliver food to you, you don't even open the gate, and then you say, I am famished. What kind of sense is that? How is love not available? That's the thing with the ego. It never looks at itself. It would say, oh, the world is not offering me love. Are you even prepared to receive love? And love is dangerous. You won't receive it. Love destroys you. Love destroys you in the right sense. So you don't want to take love. Real love is a destroyer. Real love won't leave you the way you currently are. So people don't want love. People want little things like attachment, like cheap gratification. And if that is like validation, and if that is coming, they call the source as the lover. No, that's not love. Love is always available. We do not know what love is. Now let me define love in my own little way. I might be totally misplaced. The only thing worth loving, if we are consciousness personified, the only thing worth loving is purity, ascendance, liberation. Only that can be loved. Only that can be something one can aspire for. Only that's something one wants to come close to. Therefore, that's the only thing that can be loved. Liberation. Can I be liberated of my current state? Anything that keeps you more or less in your current state is not a gift of love. It is some kind of entertainment, which is okay. One sometimes needs to be entertained for a while. But let's not call that as love. Even when it comes to giving love, because you talked of that, the same question applies. Do we know what love is? In the name of love, we keep on doing so many senseless things to others. Do we know what is love? I say I love a woman and I destroy her life. Does that not happen? And does not that happen in most of the cases? We talked of M. Scott Peck, I suppose, in the previous podcast, right? And I quoted to you that he has been categorical that marriage, the institution of marriage, is the root cause of neurosis in the world. Most cases that he says that he received as a practitioner were actually victims of the institution of marriage. So do we know what is love? The man says he loves the wife says he loves the man. Both husband and wife claim that they love the kids. And we see how most of the people in this world are. If everybody is loving everybody, how come the world is in such a terrible shape? Do we even know love? No, we don't know love. Because we are spiritually illiterate people. Right? So it's not as if we do not get love or we do not want to give love. Once you know who you are, then you also know what you essentially need. And then you are in love. And that love is unstoppable. The man who knows himself will be, in today's language, a die-hard lover. You can kill him. You cannot stop him from loving. Whereas the lovers that we usually come across, they can be so easily stopped in their tracks. The fellow says, I'm going to meet my girlfriend. You threaten him a little and he stops. The fellow says, I love my car. You put a gun here and he'll hand over the keys. The fellow says, oh, I love this or I love that political party. You convince him a little and he'll change his opinion. Or the fellow will say, I love chicken, and will consume all the flesh. That's the kind of love that we have. No, I love chicken. I love my baby and I love chicken. I'll consume the chicken and I'll consume my baby. Much the same. That's not love. Most people die without coming even close to love. And that's such a tragedy, is it not? To live for 80 years, a loveless life. A loveless life. That's what most of us live. And if life is loveless, it's not worth living. Love is really what makes life not only tolerable but joyful. So there has to be real love. Real love.
I think sometimes about what music does to the mind. And effectively, music is mathematics just expressed in sound. Would you disagree?
No, not really. You see, we are prakritic beings. We are prakritic beings.
Material beings.
Material beings arising from a long process of evolution. The mind has two layers. The layer that thinks and the layer of tendencies. The layer that thinks is the upper layer, the more superficial layer, the layer of vichar. Then the deeper one is the layer of vritti, tendencies. Vichar requires words. Vritti does not understand words. Vritti responds more to non-verbal cues like eye contact, like touch, and music. So the lyrics correspond to the thinking part of the mind. The music corresponds to your tendencies, right? And therefore, music speaks to a lot of people, even if the lyrics are incomprehensible.
As I age as a man and as I get to meet people like yourself, I feel more and more of my personality is getting erased. And I'm actually gaining peace from that process. I'm hitting a place of peace where I'm getting unaffected by ups and downs of life, ups and downs of human relationships, etc. And that's also made me think of music because I'm also a video editor. So if we're looking at an image and we put, maybe it's a guy on a beach and you put in a happy guitar music there, the whole image becomes happy. And you have the same image where you put sad music, the whole image becomes sad. And I think of personality like that for the mind as well. That do you have the capability of throwing in all different kinds of musics, or are you sticking yourself into boxes? And that's what most of the world is suffering with today. They're just kind of caught up in their own personalities. And this whole podcast has been a personality destroyer for all the listeners, for me as well in many aspects, because the core of this is I disagree with you on so many points, but I still want to listen to you more.
That's what love does. You know you are getting killed and still you are attracted to the killer.
In saying that, if I met you at a conference, I would walk away from you.
Yeah, sure.
I'm doing this for the podcast.
But that's the thing with love. You invite the killer right to your home.
Yeah.
As you have done.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed this. Like I'm not like
You enjoy the entire process of getting killed.
Yeah.
Let me quote my favorite teacher to you, and you will fall in love with him. जिस मरने से जग डरे मेरो मन आनंद, कब मरे हों कब भेटे हों पूर्ण परमानंद. जिस मरने से जग डरे, the world is afraid of the inner death. मेरो मन आनंद, but I feel joyous in that death. In fact, I'm desperate. I am eagerly looking forward to dying. Kab mare ho, kab bhete ho. When will that grand thing happen? When will I meet the total absolute joy, Puran Paramanand, the highest ecstasy possible? And that is available only when you are gone, when you are finished. As long as you remain, your sufferings remain. So that inner death is the goal of all spirituality. जिस मरने से जग डरे मेरो मन आनंद. The world is afraid of the inner destruction, and I want that inner animal, that inner sickness to be completely destroyed. I want to be nobody. I want to be gone. Who am I? Gate gate paragate swaha, as the Buddhists say. Gone, gone, totally gone, gone beyond, finished. Gate gate paragate swaha. Nothing remains. Nothing remains. So die before the body dies. Die before the body dies, and then you come alive. That's when actually you are born for the first time.
Yeah. I don't think I would have the understanding to understand what you just said even 6 months ago. Through this podcast, I've met incredibly.
I think I would advise you to go to the saints. I think you will love them. Go to Saint Kabir. Go to Saint Vedas. Go to Dadu Dayal. Go to Rumi. Go to Hafiz. You'll love them.
Yeah.
Go to Baba Bulle Shah. Just see. And if you can, as you say, vibe well with her, go to Mirabai. And you might find you are getting dissolved in your own tears.
Yeah, this process, doctor, is definitely destroying my personality. I'm saying that in a very positive way. I'm grateful to you. I'm not ready to go deeper than this, which is why I'm stopping the podcast here. There's definitely a lot of things I'm questioning and I need some time to absorb. This is where I stop. Like, this is where my questions stop at this stage, age 29 and a half.
I know you will need more of this. You will crave for more than this. So it might come through me or through anybody or from any source, maybe through your own realization based on experience, whatever. But you'll definitely go further and deeper than this.
Acharya, I'm grateful and
Wonderful.
And I can't express what I'm feeling in words, but thank you. Just a big fat thank you. And
I'm glad.
I'm hoping to talk to you again. That's all I'll say.
Wonderful.
Thank you, sir. That was the episode for today. If you understand Hindi, I highly recommend you go check out the Hindi version of this conversation that we did with Acharya Prashant. Extremely heavy, just like this one, a little bit more fiery maybe. I just hope that our English audience, especially international listeners, especially listeners from parts of India where Hindi is not a commonly spoken language, got introduced correctly to one of the great minds of modern day India. There's a reason that Acharya Prashant has gained this kind of a following online, offline. And I'm glad that TRS could have been a part of his journey. Someone who seeks the purest version of knowledge. And that's what I gained from him. A 360-degree worldview on life, existence, existentialism, and philosophy. I had to sit with all these data points for 2 to 3 days after this recording just to be able to make sense of the things spoken on this podcast. Thank you for listening in. I'm sure I did the same to you. I do recommend that you listen to this conversation 2 or 3 more times. And I also recommend that you follow us on Spotify. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. This was Acharya Prashant on The Ranveer Show.